Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of the HNEpod, and again, I am joined by Jackson from Full Circle.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me back, Josh. It was a fun time last time, and I'm ready to talk some more news this week.
Yeah, so today we have on our kind of topic list there, we have the Christian Bale casting, talking about the role he may be playing in the movie. And then also at the same time, we're talking about the Flash movie because we have a new update on that, even if it's rather minor, all things considered. Then the Batman movie, set photos came out for that, or I guess I should say leaked out for that, which it doesn't give a lot, even though we do have a new confirmation for casting, but it does tease something, which may be a part of a grander part of the story for the actual movie. And then last but not least, the New Mutants trailer came out, so we're going to talk about that since, my God, has that production had quite the troubled history.
Been a long road for that one.
Yeah, for sure. But getting on to the next topic, and this is something I'm curious on your thoughts of, but with The Flash, they're still making it. The director came out today and said that it will still have inspiration from Flashpoint. What is your opinion on that?
So here, and let me pull up the full quote. It's brief.
It's like a sentence long, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sentence long, but it's very telling. This story dropped a little over an hour ago, and wrote this up on Full Circle. So let me grab this. Yeah, right here. So what Andy Muschietti said is that his Flash, which is set to come out in 2022, will be, quote, a different version of Flashpoint than you're expecting. And off the bat, it's obviously big news that they're still adapting Flashpoint, given all the rewrites and the different directors coming on and off the movie. That's big on its own thing, because just the fact that they're going back to the storyline. But a different Flashpoint than you're expecting isn't a great phrase, I guess, for fans of the Flash, and for more so for, I think, fans of the live action series, just because a different Flashpoint than you're expecting is kind of what they threw at us on the CW. And it did not go over well. It was not well received. It was really lackluster and kind of just died out because they didn't adapt the actual story. And it's completely understandable why they wouldn't. It's a larger-than-life story. There's a crazy amount of characters. Aquaman, Wonder Woman are very prominent. The Thomas Wayne version of Bruce Wayne. Superman plays a role. You can't just, in animation, it's easy to just throw those things out there. But in a live action movie, in a live action series, you don't really have the resources to do that kind of thing. And my issue comes in where, obviously, I adore the Flashpoint storyline. That the animated movie is incredible, but you're not going to get Gal Gadot. You're not going to get Jason Momoa. You're absolutely not going to get. Listen, maybe they get Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I'm not sure, but you're not going to get these big name actors. Henry Cavill's not going to come back for this thing. So it's like, where are they taking this, and why is Flashpoint the right story to do? Because I really don't think it's the right one for a solo Flash movie. At least the first one, absolutely the first one. But that's just my thoughts. There's a lot to go off of because it's such a big story. But I'll toss it back to you before I keep going on my rant.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, as soon as he said the storyline name and then that they're not going to do a version we expect, I wasn't even thinking about the CW version until you just mentioned it. And that was an utter failure, in my opinion, just because they could have made it, in my opinion, they should have done a whole mid-season. Like that first half should have been the Flashpoint universe, like buried there. I just thought it would have been more impactful, and you would have really been able to explore what Barry did, and in the second half could really deal with the consequences of that, which in a way kind of makes it like two different seasons in one, which probably would have flowed better. But with the movie version, I'm a little disappointed they're doing that, just because I was hoping they would do something we haven't even seen remotely in the CW show, which is a proper Rogues. And by doing Flashpoint, they almost confirm that the rumors are true, that they're still doing Reverse Flash / Professor Zoom as the main antagonist. And I'm not really excited about that personally, just because I wanted something entirely new and entirely different. Plus, it feels like, for whatever reason, people think that the only impactful connecting to the origin of the Flash storyline around is Flashpoint, which is a little disappointing, I guess, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think
it's, yeah, I don't doubt that they could force contractually Jason Momoa or Gal Gadot to come back. In my opinion, I've always thought, look, if you're going to do the Flashpoint movie, especially with this weird Snyder era and then post-Snyder era of DC films, you might as well just let this be the reboot movie and, forcibly enact everyone's contract, have Gal Gadot come back with the Amazonian army, have Jason Momoa come with the Atlantean army. I would leave Henry Cavill and that whole Superman side plot alone, but you know what? Ray Fisher you probably have for a few more movies. Bring him back for a somewhat minor role, and then
you'd end up getting the Marvel family in there as well if you were actually adapting it.
Well, I would leave them out still. I think I would do the Atlantean Amazonian War angle. I would do that. I would do Cyborg being the big American hero, and probably I guess you would have Professor Zoom still be your villain, but I would have also, out of all the various characters, Ben Affleck, Batman, involved instead of his father. And I know that'd be really controversial to some people, but at least this way you have potential abilities to do things you weren't able to do with Snyder's movies, which is give closure to some of these characters, because otherwise they just very abruptly do not appear anymore. At least characters like Ray Fisher's Cyborg, Ben Affleck's Batman, not really counting Gal Gadot or Jason Momoa's characters since they have sequels coming out in the future. But I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of weird for me with Ezra Miller still as the Flash.
I mean, I take issue with this because, I mean, obviously we don't know the exact story, but you say Flashpoint and we're going to take it as it is. And, looking at it, the DCEU in the last 2 years has moved past the Snyder era. Wonder Woman looks to be tonally different. Shazam was tonally different. Aquaman was tonally different. Birds of Prey is looking to be tonally different. They seem, they're moving past it, and that's fine. No one, I mean, people, have their issues with it, whatever. But like they've been successful. These last movies have been received well. They've done well at the box office, and it's on the right track. With Flashpoint, you're telling me that either you're just adapting a Barry Allen, a comic book story with Ezra Miller's Flash, and then, putting pieces around it that may not fit or may not have been, set up in the canon already, or you're retreading on the Snyder stuff. And that's kind of what back last year, it was said that before Muschietti came on that Ezra was writing his own script, to try to keep on with the role, and that was going to be more dark and Snyder-esque. And then this one, you're also getting the Flashpoint angle because apparently Ezra's was also going to take from Flashpoint. But it's just a weird pitch to do for a first movie, and I think everyone's thought that since that was the original idea all the years ago. And I just think in the last 2 years that we've moved past that, and this should be its own, origin. Not direct origin story, but a young Barry Allen, learning how to become the Flash and dealing with his life. Basically what the first season of the Flash entailed of, which is the best season of the show, with Reverse Flash and just him realizing the powers he has and what it means to be a hero. I mean, it's a tale as old as time. It's not that complicated. Pitch. I mean, yeah, it's not,
like the first season was, I think, Berlanti's movie pitch just stretched out.
Right. It's not a complicated story to tell, but it's also one you need when you're setting up a franchise. Flashpoint is the most convoluted, complicated thing. It reset the entire DC universe. I mean, that was the point. So it's like you're doing this in a solo movie for a character we barely know. We've seen in a cameo briefly, in an email attachment, and then in Justice League for a few minutes. I think there's so many directions to go, and it's kind of a disservice to a character like Barry Allen to just toss it in Flashpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, especially DC fans, are going to say, well, isn't that hypocritical to say? You did Captain America Civil War, and I can understand that argument, playing devil's advocate, except for the fact that this really has no buildup whatsoever. I mean, they haven't taken time, and I agree with you on this. With the first movie, should really explore the nature as much as they can of his abilities, him really adjusting to those abilities, because right now, doing Flashpoint, doing time travel, doing any of that, is just happening because we, the general audience, have familiarity with the character of time travel. And a lot of that is also because a lot of people have seen the Flash TV show, not really because they read the comics. So in my personal opinion, I'm like, maybe establish the mythology for the film universe that you want to establish first for the Speed Force and the character and all that stuff before you do Flashpoint. Because I think a lot of the, not the awe of Flashpoint, but a lot of the interesting aspects of Flashpoint is how much Barry changed things. And you're not really going to see that compare and contrast if it's the first movie.
I think, and also without, if they don't take from this bigger story and have this war tearing apart the world, it's difficult to sell the fact that, Barry comes back to a completely different world, and, the event of his mother dying, basically tore the world apart. It's like, well, where's the weight in that? That was the problem with Flashpoint on the CW, was that it was so small and insignificant that you didn't really feel the weight of him making the choice to save his mother. It changed, obviously, and people were different, and Iris was upset with Joe and they weren't as close, and all these little minuscule things, but on a whole it didn't have the impact, and it was too brief. And a 2-hour movie with this kind of the gravitas of this kind of story, I just it's a disservice to both that story and the character who we're just basically being introduced to now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I've been reading online that it might be more of a kind of Back to the Future storyline, a lot more standalone, and they're just kind of using Flashpoint to sell it, like marketing wise. And in that case, I get it, but I still think you shouldn't do a time travel story in your first solo film. I think you should do something just more, not conservative per se, but I think you should do something that's more welcoming and inviting to really learning who this character is and why you should care about the character. Just because I think they're going a little bit too much from the get-go off goodwill people have from other media interpretations of The Flash. Not really this Ezra Miller version of The Flash, which in that case means I really won't care that his mom died or that he went back to save her. Like I'm not invested in the character yet.
Right, and as bad, as much of a bad job they did doing it on the CW, you had 2 seasons of Barry living without his mother, then his father dying at the end of season 2, which is really the crux of why he went back to save his mother, was because both of his parents had died. He wasn't able to save either of them. So he made the decision to go back and change them both. And you live with him for 2 seasons with that fact. And it was obviously his biggest issue, and it was the thing that weighed on him the most, was the fact that he couldn't save his mother, and then he ended up beating Reverse Flash, but made the choice not to save her in the end. But he wanted to do something selfishly for himself, and you felt that emotion. The emotion was there in that moment at the end of season 2 when he went back on that cliffhanger. But yeah, I don't know anything about Ezra Miller's Flash. We've had very brief looks at him. I mean, I can't say that the scene with Henry Allen in Justice League where he goes in and talks to him in the prison isn't moving. But I don't know them. I don't know either of them. I honestly only know it because I know the story itself, and that's it doesn't work that way. You can't force something on an audience because you assume they know things. You have to tell the story with these characters and these versions of those characters, and I think it's going to be a difficult sell for sure.
But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this episode. Jackson, thanks for joining us again. I appreciate you being available.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah. So I guess, Jackson, you want to let everybody know where they could find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at JacksonHayes67 and follow the page at Full Circle Cine. That's CINE. And yeah, we'll just check us out and listen to the pod and continue listening to the pods and support H&E and all that.
Yeah. And for anyone else interested, leave comments in the description with hashtag HNEpod. Also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you're probably listening to this as different segments. But if you're listening to it on other platforms, let us know what platforms you're listening to it on, whether it's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever it may be you're listening to it, let us know. And with all that said and done, Jackson, again, thank you for being a part of this episode, and we'll see you guys later.